So I have selected 5 anecdotes which were very instructive to me in my own life. I hope you will also enjoy them. First, some background. My father, after Second World War, he was an army officer and doctor. So he joined Madhya Bharat Health Services. One problem with him was he tried to bring in the army ethics and discipline into the civilian life, which was perhaps contraindicated at that point in time because of the various funny mechanisms that you find in civilian life. So whenever he would take action against someone or some wrongdoing, he would be transferred. I therefore have the privilege of having studied in 11 different schools in 11 years, because every year we would be transferred. And every school I went to, without absolutely any exception, had a few extraordinary teachers who have made an impact on me. And that is when I realized that if learning could be so much fun, teaching should be equally fun. And that is how I became a teacher later. The first anecdote I wish to tell you is about when I was studying in 8th grade in a place called Jagdalpur in Bastar district of then unified Madhya Pradesh. And my father was transferred midway through. Normally he would be transferred at the end of a semester, but end of a term. So I had to join the government higher secondary school in Raipur towards the second half of the 8th grade itself. Well, you get adjusted because you learn to adjust. There was a 9-monthly test, and it was the first test for me, and the students were, of course, as good, but I managed to score 96 out of 100 marks in the maths paper, stood first there, and I was very happy, very proud. And I came home and told my mother I scored 96 marks. She was also quite happy. So she started looking at my answer book. And I was smiling and looking at her, and she says, "Deepak, where did you lose 4 marks?" Now, that was an unexpected question. So I was a bit rattled. I said, I stood first in the class. The smile on her face disappeared and she slapped me. I must be the only idiot to get slapped after scoring 96 marks and standing first in the class. I actually started crying and I asked her, why? You know what she said? She said, "Deepak, did I ask you what was your position in the class? I only asked you where did you lose 4 marks. If you had stood last in the class and had scored only 40 out of 100, I would have still asked you the same question, where did you lose 60 marks? Because I want to know whether you could do the best of your abilities or not." I kept crying. I did not feel well that evening, but when I retrospected, I realized that what she was telling me is always to examine whether you have worked to the best of your abilities or not, rather than worrying about a relative position vis-a-vis other people's work. Of course, you have to compete in the real world, you have to do well, whatever. But still, the fundamental fact remains. That has taught me an extremely important lesson in life. You know, till date, since that 8th standard episode, 1959 or something, anytime I do a task, simple or complex, and by God's grace, I've been able to do most of the tasks successfully and properly. Yet, what I do is, I re-examine the task that I have done and just ask myself this question: could I have done this better? Believe me, this question has worked wonders in my life, because only when you ask this question genuinely, you are actually introspecting. And you will find in spite of having done your job well, you will find several small instances where you could have done better. Because when you ask yourself a question, could I have done it better? The answer is always yes. I have never found a situation where the answer is no, I have done perfectly. Not possible. This habit of introspection is what I learned from my mother. Although rather harshly, I still remember the slap on my face. But I think it was a good and meaningful slap. Moving forward, this next episode, which was again gave me a very important learning, happened in mid-70s. I used to play competitive chess then, and we used to live in a suburb called Matunga because accommodation on IIT campus, you have to wait for 2 years, 3 years sometimes. So, in one of the tournaments, a player who was playing was very renowned player then. His name was Abdul Jabbar. He came from very difficult situation. He was from the Julaha community, as I said. Very poor family background, but on chessboard, he was absolutely extraordinary. So, after one game, which I played with him, I had decided to play for a draw. That itself was a learning because whenever I thought I will exchange pieces quickly and then I could play good endgame. But whenever I would put my bishop against his bishop, he will move his bishop back. Whenever I put my knight against his knight, he will move his knight back. And I was getting frustrated. After some 8 or 10 moves, what I found is all his pieces, which supposedly he had retreated away from my pieces, were actually so beautifully organized that there was an attack imminent on my king. And he attacked and made a mincemeat of my game completely. But I digress. As we walked out, the then Secretary of Maharashtra Chess Association, Sakhakar, was also walking with us. And this Abdul Jabbar asked him, ये झंडू फार्मास्यूटिकल्स में कौन सा बस जाता है? झंडू फार्मास्यूटिकल्स is a company in Paray, and they had actually given away their canteen in the evenings to Bombay Chess Association. So all chess association activities used to happen. So Sakhakar asked him, why do you want to go there? He says, no, I have some papers from Vidarbha Chess Association which I have to give them and I have to collect some papers. And Sakhakar says, अरे association का काम है ना, फिर taxi में बैठ के जा, association will reimburse you the taxi fare. And you know what that 5th standard pass Julaha chess player said? Smilingly, he told Sakhakar, साहब मैं अपने काम के लिए कभी टैक्सी पे पैसे खर्च नहीं करता, एसोसिएशन के काम के लिए कैसे करूं? Can you see the implied ethics? How many grown-up, well-educated people whom we see normally, who will travel in first class or now in business class, provided somebody is paying their fare. Very interesting. When I thought about it, I said, I used to be called and hosted by people even then. So I said, is it right? Do I deserve to be hosted? Am I willing to pay money from my own pocket? So I decided that I will start attending at least one conference every year where I spend money from my own pocket, stay in hotels, everything. And then if it does not pinch, then I would think that I am entitled to be hosted by others. But those days, I did not do any consulting those days. I lived on my salary of teacher, which was reasonably good, but not too much. But then my wife used to monitor the accounts. And she reminded me 2 months later, Deepak, you had gone to attend this CSI conference and I don't see any reimbursement. So I sheepishly told her this story and I said, this money I have spent from my own pocket. And she angrily looked at me. This is not fair, she says. you are doing your ethical experiments at my cost. Because she naturally regarded all money that I earned to be her money. So I was flustered, I didn't know what to say. But I was very pleased when next she said, next time you do this, you must take me along so that we both go. And you must spend an extra day after the conference to spend with me, which is what we have been doing since then. Such trips are popularly called as Jabbar trips in our family, in the honor of the person from whom we learned this. But the important lesson is that, number one, you have to treat public money as carefully as you treat your own money. There cannot be any different judgmental decisions based on who is paying for. The third one is a lesson I learned when I had already become a teacher. The episode concerns submission of grades after your exam is over. So our Senate had made a rule earlier which said that you must submit your grades to the academic office within 4 days of completing your exam. But of course, IIT faculty members are smart, so they all started saying Saturday, Sunday to can't be counted. But the Senate was smarter because it consists of all the professors. So in the next meeting, Senate said the grades must be submitted in 96 hours after your exam. So if someone does not submit the grade after 96 hours, next day morning, formal letter will be issued by Dean Academics to all such teachers saying you are ramaged on the deadline and you are given 24 hours to submit your grade. So most people submitted, but if somebody remained, then the next day they got a call from the director of the institute saying, "Milne ko aa jao 5 minutes." So that was the protocol. I had gone to Hyderabad for some meeting and then I had to rush to Delhi for some other meeting. I used to consult by that time with ministries and financial sector institutions like banks and so on. And I had just come back. And when I went to the office that morning, my assistant said, "Sir, director साहब से call आया." मैंने कहा, "अरे डायरेक्टर साहब से मिलने को बुलाया, आपके ग्रेड नहीं गई." तो मैंने कहा, "अरे वो तो लास्ट डे तो कल था ना." "नहीं सर, परसों था, कल डीन साहब का चिट्ठी आ गया, आपने वो भी नहीं किया, तो अभी जाना पड़ेगा." That was my first encounter of such a kind. So I went to his office and I was admitted the proper time. So Professor Nag sitting there, he used to call me Phatak. "So Phatak, you know why you have been called?" I sheepishly said, "Yes, sir." "So there will be no tea today, but you can smoke." He was a chain smoker, so he offered me a cigar. And then when I sat, he said smilingly, "What happened?" So I said, "Sir, I had gone to Hyderabad for this meeting, Delhi." And he kept smiling. He said, yeah, Phatak, I know how you have been doing great contributions to ministries, to financial industry, etc., etc. And I thought he has sort of mellowed down, kept smiling. And then suddenly he says, "Tell you what, Phatak, why don't you do it full time?" I did not first understand what he meant. Then I realized he was asking me to quit as a teacher in IIT Bombay and do all these financial, whatever government things. So I said, "I beg your pardon, sir." His voice became very stern. He says, "Phatak, you are no doubt making great contributions. We are all proud of you. But never ever forget that you are a teacher. And you cannot compromise with the basic tenets and responsibilities of a teacher. And if you can't do that, go find some other." The next episode in my life I wish to share with you is an experience which I will never forget. It was just a one-day experience. All of you know late Dr. Abdul Kalam, right? This is an incident which happened when he visited IIT in 80s. At that time, he was not the President of India, but he was still DRDO chief. Now, I was working on a maintenance training simulator for the Tejas aircraft, which was still being designed. When I heard that Dr. Kalam is visiting IIT Bombay, I wanted him to visit my lab and talk to my project engineers and students naturally. But when I called the director's office, they said, no, his secretary has said that there will be no, appointments after evening because Dr. Kalam has to take an early morning flight next day. So, no meeting in the evening. I said, अरे 5 मिनट के लिए तो नहीं, no time. So I did a trick. I saw that he was to be driven from one lab in one corner of the campus to aerospace engineering department, which was almost at the other corner. And I said, look, let me drive him to that aerospace department from the lab. What will you get? I said, I'll get 2-3 minutes to talk with him. What is your problem? They said, all right, you can. So, in fact, it was a very funny incident when I was waiting for him to come out of that lab. And Professor Sahasrabuddhe was our deputy director. He introduced me to him and told Kalam, sir, Professor Phatak will be your chauffeur for your trip to... They all smiled. So, I now take him. I had an old rickety Fiat at that time. And he, with his gunman following, were walking with me, and I opened the rear door for him to sit down. You know, the smart person he was, he realized that there was no driver. So immediately sensed that Phatak is going to drive himself. What should he do? He did not go in. He asked the security fellow with gun to go and sit inside. And opened the front door and sat next to him. What a courtesy, you know. So I start driving and I told him, sir, the reason I wanted to drive was to talk to you. Yeah, I understood that. Well, what do you want? I said, I'm working on this maintenance training simulator. Yes. Dr. Kotahari Narayan has told me you are doing some good work of indigenization. And you know how committed he was in making India self-sufficient, particularly for imports and defense-related. So he smiled and said, yes, I know about it. So I said, sir, I wanted you to visit our lab and talk to the young people there. And he kept quiet for a few seconds and suddenly says, do your people work in the night? I said, of course they do, sir. This is IIT Bombay. Our lab never closed. So he says, okay, come to the guest house at 10 o'clock in the night. I was shocked. I said, sir, but your secretary has said that you have to take an early morning flight back. He smiled and said, the secretary sleeps at 9:45. So Kalam came with me at 10 o'clock, and I tell you, all my project engineers and students who were working there were so zapped. He was so motivating. For next 6 months, all of those 25 people were working like zombies, I tell you. They were so committed. At the end of this visit, when he was to go out, I introduced him to Professor Vasi and Chandorkar, who were waiting for him. And I said, sir, they also want to speak to you. So they told him about this microelectronic equipment which they had constructed and requested whether he could be willing to come. This is almost 10:35 in the night, by the way. And you know what Dr. Kalam says? Smilingly, he tells them, of course I would love to attend, provided, then he turned towards me, the professor does not mind chauffeuring me around a bit more. And I was, of course, a most willing chauffeur. We went to his lab. He spent up to 11:15. 11:30, I think around 11:30, I dropped him back to the guest house. God knows how many hours he slept, because at 4 o'clock he had to leave. But such passion, such commitment to Indian work, and such the ability to encourage. And if you can imbibe this philosophy into your own lives, remember what kind of contributions you can make in life. Amazing it would. I spoke of deadlines, but I had a very interesting experience. This happened in 4 or 5. You see, faculty recruitment is always an extremely important task for any institution. You are students, so you only see faculty members who are already working there. But you do not know the struggle which the institutional management undergoes in order to get the best faculty members, recruit them, and engage with them. Now, every institution, and definitely a government institution, has its own set of rules, In IIT Bombay then, we were able to get a whole lot of young, smart researchers as teachers from United States where they were doing their PhD most of them. We have a very strong alumni network, and many of our alumni are professors and vice chancellors or equivalent of president there in various universities. So what we had started doing is, we had started asking them to send us a list of top-class research scholars in their institution who are Indian and who are likely to come back to India. And we would engage with them when they are in their third year of PhD or fourth year of PhD and start interacting and so on and so forth. Professor Ashok Misra, who was our director, came from IIT Delhi. He told the board that the constitution of a selection committee is defined, but the rules do not say where the selection committee should meet. Why can't it meet in the United States? As long as the constitution. The chairman agreed. And we were all shortlisting at IIT Bombay means everybody who is shortlisted is actually really good. But obviously everybody wants the best. So we were looking at first candidate, second candidate, third candidate. I still remember Professor Aniruddha Sahu, who actually was working in an industry but was still an active researcher after his PhD. So we all liked him. And when he left the interview room, Ashok looked at all of us smilingly because he believed that interaction was going on very positively. He asked us, and we said, yes, he is good, I think we should hire. Immediately, Ashok pulled out 2 papers from his briefcase, signed both of them, gave me a copy, and said, all right, then give it to him. And I was looking at it. It was his appointment letter. And I was so shocked. I said, Ashok, how did you know we are going to select him? He smiled and says, I didn't. So I have a printed appointment letter for every shortlisted candidate. I will sign only those which get selected, others I will throw. I still had an argument. I said, Ashok, you know that computer science department, I don't hire people unless I have a positive opinion about their families also to relocate to India. So he said, fine, you keep this. I said, I have a cup of tea meeting with him in the evening. So I'll be meeting him. So he says, you carry this letter in an envelope with you. If you are happy with the interaction with the family, give him this appointment letter, otherwise bring it back. Do you see the important delegation that the director of an institute is willing to make and able to make through confidence? You select a person and you are ready with the appointment letter. I tell you what this incident taught me is the need to be innovative, to short circuit any delays, explicit or implicit, in any process, without making any mistake. No mistakes, but fast work. So you have to act fast. And these days, making quick decisions is absolutely, absolutely important. You know, one of the problems that I find, and this I have seen across generations, so the same thing will apply to you when you pass out and become professionals. You will come across situations where you have to take decisions. Now, decisions may go vary if some of the assumptions don't work. Decisions may work well if some of the assumptions work properly. And because you are all smart, you will generally make right decisions. But when you make 10 decisions, 7 will prove to be very good, 2 may be sort of okay, and 1 may go wrong. But that's fine. However, perpetually worrying about that one decision which may go wrong, if you delay all decision making, then other 9 decisions will also not work. So please remember that in situations with a lot of uncertainties, you have to use your professional caliber and experience to say, in your opinion, this should work, and take that decision. Don't worry too much. Of course, if you make too many wrong decisions, your superior will have a private word with you. But you are smart people. This will actually work. So remember to take decisions quickly and implement. Well, I have stories and stories, but what I would tell you is just a few concluding observations. The first is ability to face failures. Failures will happen in life. What is important is how quickly can you recover from a failure. There's a second point I wanted to make. Courtesy, compassion, and concern. If you find a friend sulking and not recovering from a failure, that is where your friendship should come. Okay. If you find somebody doing a wrong thing, a friend doing a wrong thing, you must remind that friend not to do it or correct the mistake. If you don't, then you are not his or her friend, you are an enemy. These things, courtesy, compassion, and concern, should become very natural aspects of your life. And the last word, sorry, we rarely say. Because sorry means admitting that I have made some mistake. And for any human being, that is the most difficult. Whether it is child or grown up or old, saying sorry is not very easy. Learn to say sorry when you realize that there is some mistake that you have made. Believe me, it will take your relationship with the other persons far longer and far stronger. The last advice I would like to give you is to reset your attitude, which is unfortunately set by the rat race, primarily for marks that you have been playing all along, right from the first time. What has happened to all of us is we learn to give competitive exams, we learn to get marks, we learn to get judged by others on the marks that we score, and therefore we lose the complete dimension of the human mind, which is full of curiosity, full of commitment, full of enthusiasm, full of passion, and full of not giving up. So my final request to all of you is rediscover the child in you and build a great human being. Because one thing which a child does not have is ethics and humility. A child does not have ethics. Well, he wants to grab everything from the other and so on and so forth. And of course, being very humble is not part of the child game. These are two important factors which have developed as human societal factors. So my concluding suggestion is rediscover the child in you, but build a great human on top of that child. And there is no stopping you then in the rest of your life. Thank you so much.